What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Chase, and this is Fantasy Forge. This week, we're going to be looking at 5 unique weapons for your campaign this weekend. So let's get right into this. So, I'm using this website called WorldAnvil. I'm not sponsored by them, but it is an awesome place to put all of your campaign notes in one spot, so I would highly recommend using them. So, our first weapon that we have today is called the Dragon's Fang Dagger. And so this dagger is a really good weapon for a lower level campaign, but you can still bring a lot of magical element to your campaign without giving a weapon to your PCs that's really super overpowered. So this dagger functions as a normal dagger with its standard 10-foot range and 1d4 damage, but its special ability mainly lies in its piercing blow. So this dagger still retains some magical properties from when it was a dragon's fang and can pierce even the toughest armor. The dagger gains a +2 attack bonus on foes with armor, natural armor, or unnatural armor. And so this is really good for a lower level campaign. If a character isn't too good with wielding a dagger, or they don't have that high of strength or dexterity bonus, then they can still be somewhat competent in combat, especially against super heavily armored creatures. And so this just gives the player a nice +2 attack bonus against most foes in the game. And so its second ability is really where the fun for your PCs comes in, and so that's called Dragon's Fury. Upon scoring a critical hit, the dagger releases the rage of the dragon that it once belonged to, dealing an additional 1d8 points of damage that isn't included in the critical hit multiplier of whatever type of element that the dragon owned it had. So this functions as essentially a bonus, like a fire bonus or a icy burst bonus that you would normally put on a magic weapon, but this gives a little bit more of a mystical element from it, saying that instead of just this sword was enchanted with fire or acid, that this dagger is the tooth of a dragon, and that when you score a critical hit, it gives this extra burst of damage that was from the dragon that the fang came from. And so this is just kind of a fun element for your PCs to think about while they're using their weapons in-game. Alright, this next weapon is semi-complicated. It's called a Morphwood weapon. And so Morphwood is a substance that can transform itself into anything it wants, and it is as hard as steel when it is transformed. And so the Morphwood weapon starts out being able to transform into a short bow or short sword upon command as a move action. And so by gaining experience points in the different forms, you can put experience points into tiers. And so because the tiers didn't drop well into WorldAnvil, as you can see, I put them all out in this big list for you guys. And so you can see there's 2 tiers here. We have the melee tier and a range tier. And so these tiers kind of allow players to focus on building one type of damage, either melee or range, through their campaign. And so as they gain XP, using the weapon to slay monsters and such, they gain different levels in this tier. And so each level unlocks either a new weapon that the Morphwood can transform into, or just increases its attack bonus. And so all the Morphwood weapons start out as Masterwork, so they get the basic +1 attack bonus. But then as they get up, the attack bonus increases to +3, and then on the melee tier, it gets a +1 damage bonus to all rolls. And so one thing I did want to mention is that even though the player can transform the weapon into an Elven Curved Blade, he or she would still need exotic weapon proficiency to use it without the penalty to the attack rolls with the weapon. So the player would need to take the necessary feats to use the weapons as they go up. And then our second tier is the range tier, and so it starts out with longbow and increases the attack bonus along with gaining different types of weapons as we go up. And then finally, at 10,000 XP, we give a +1 bonus to the weapon's critical threat range. Oh, it's cut off a little bit here in my document. But it gives that +1 bonus to weapon's critical threat range, and most range weapons already have a fairly high critical threat range. So once you get 10,000 XP in this weapon, you're going to be able to hit headshots fairly easily as an archer. Alright, so this next weapon is really useful for like a lower level fighter character and can be scaled really nicely for higher level campaigns. So these seemingly uninteresting leather gloves begin to spark with electricity when worn and have lightning patterns embroidered on them in gold. They have the power to deal electricity damage, charge metallic weapons, or even to shoot lightning bolts. Alright, so these lightning gloves start out with +0, so they don't give anything to an unarmed strike as far as attack-wise, but they do give a +1d6 electricity damage, which would be nice for characters like monks who rely heavily on unarmed strikes. And so their second ability is charge. So the gloves can charge a metallic weapon with electricity, basically giving it an electric quality, which would make it deal an extra 1d6 points of electricity damage. And so the nice thing with this is that you can change weapons from like a short sword to a mace or something, depending on what type of monster you're fighting, without losing this 1d6 bonus of electricity damage. And so this is nice for lower level fighters to kind of diversify their kit a little bit. And then the last ability is Lightning Bolt, and so this ability is probably, I would save it for either your lower level characters level up, or this is a higher level campaign, because Lightning Bolt's a fairly powerful spell, especially where I have it here, it's leveled up quite a lot to level 7th. So it does 76 points of electricity damage right now, and so that'd be kind of OP for like a level 2 or 3 character to just have to use once per day. So I think that I would either reduce the caster level on it. This spell just functions as 1d6 points of damage per caster level. So I would reduce either the caster level to fit your campaign, or have this ability be unlocked. Like, this would be nice for like a 5th level fighter to unlock once he's been using these lightning gloves for a few campaigns. Alright, so this next weapon we have is actually 2 weapons. It's called the Swords of Life and Death. So the Swords of Life and Death were forged by an ancient sorcerer, and they have the power to both give and to take away. So one of these masterwork rapiers is kind of like a white silvery color, and the other is a dark metallic gray. So the dark metallic gray rapier has the ability, upon hitting a target, to do an additional damage of 1d4 points, and that's draining damage. And so when it drains these hit points, it doesn't lifesteal them onto your PC like a lot of other weapons would do. Instead, these go into the other light sword. And so the second sword is called the Life Giver. So the second silver white sword is works in tandem with the Death Giver, storing the positive energy that the Death Drainer takes from the monsters that it hits, and it can store a maximum of up to 10 hit points. These hit points can then be released on command as a free action to heal the wielder, heal any ally within 10 feet of the wielder, or as damage against undead creatures with positive energy. And so these weapons would be really useful in taking on a long dungeon crawl campaign, because they have the ability to kind of farm Cure Light Wound spells from any monsters that the fighter slays. So if you were running a team composition with very little healing in it, and you just had like a fighter and a paladin and a rogue, these would be really useful swords to take along with that, because your rogue could essentially farm healing spells from the monsters that it hits. The only downfall to this would be if you were running an adventure with a lot of undead creatures. It might be hard for the PCs to use them because they don't drain energy from undead creatures with the Death Sword. So I would be careful with using that on, like, fighting a skeleton army. It probably wouldn't be that fun for the PCs if they can never use its special ability. Alright, our last weapon today is the Starglass Elven Curve Blade. So this was originally made by ancient and powerful elves, and the methods to create weapons with this magical substance have been all but lost in modern times. This long, light blue scimitar glints in the sunlight and is slightly transparent. So I made this blade out of Starglass, so it's a magical substance that can store light and release it later on command. And so otherwise this sword functions normally as just a masterworked elven curved blade. So when the weapon is exposed to bright sunlight, it stores light levels, up to 5 light levels of light, and then on command it releases them all at once in a 60-foot radius around the blade. And so this can be useful for fighting certain monster types, such as shadow demons that are really susceptible to bright bursts of light, Or it could also be useful to free up a spell slot in one of your fellow sorcerer's spell books, because he doesn't need to prepare light every day if you're going into a dungeon if you know that you have this Elven Curve Blade fully charged up and you can release light levels as you go along. So this would be a great sword to give to a fighter PC to utilize as something for him to do other than just slay the goblins that his party ends up coming across. Alright guys, that is all of the unique weapons that I have for you today. If you have any ideas for any future videos you'd like to see, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'm Chase, this is Fantasy Forge, and thanks for watching.